welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. This is the 5th and final episode of my Stash Tour series, and this time we're looking at frogged yarn and mini skeins. Just a reminder, if you haven't watched the previous Stash Tour videos, in all of these episodes I am going to give as much information about the yarn as I have, any project plans that I have, including photos that I'll include right here of the patterns that I want to make with them, and any fun stories that I have to share about how the yarn got into my stash. I thought this would be a fun video to end the stash tour with because, first of all, it's a little smaller. I don't have a lot of yarns that fit this category, but also I thought it'd be really fun for those of you who have been with me for a while because you'll see some yarns that I've previously shown in my podcast episodes. You've seen that yarn before, you've seen me try and knit it up into other projects that I have either frogged partway through, or in some cases I've had a finished object, but I know it's not right and I've frogged it or have plans to frog it, and now you're going to get to see the new life that I'm going to give it in a new pattern. So let's start with frogged yarns and then we'll move on and finish with mini skeins. The first one I want to show you is one that has been with me for quite a while, and if you've been with me for 2 years, you will know this project. This is my Sugar Plum jumper by Fauble Knitwear, and this one did not work for me because it was a bottom-up raglan that did not have compound raglan shaping, and so my yoke is far too long. Whenever I wear this sweater, my armpit is right here. But whenever I wore the sweater, which wasn't very often, the armpit comes all the way out to here. So I have a good 5-6 inches of extra armhole space that I do not need. But I absolutely love this yarn, and I don't want this to sit in a project that didn't work out that I don't wear. The yarn is Daydream DK Weight by Knit Picks. It was a limited edition yarn. It is a blown style yarn that is 69% superfine alpaca, 24% nylon, and 7% merino wool. And the color is pink sapphire. You get 142 yards per 50 grams. Now, this yarn is no longer available. It's discontinued because it was just a specialty yarn. And I take umbrage with the fact that they call this a DK weight yarn because this is how thick this yarn is. I would categorize this as a bulky yarn. So I did not choose a DK weight pattern to make with this yarn. I knit up a swatch that I was happy with, and then I found a pattern that met that gauge. And I think my gauge was 13 stitches per 4 inches or something crazy like that. And one of my followers on Instagram actually suggested the Sugar Plum jumper, and I then looked at the pattern and decided on my own to buy that pattern and make that pattern, and it didn't work out for me. And now I know that Fauble Knitwear patterns don't work for my body because the shaping and the grading is not there for my particular size, as much as Helene wants to be size inclusive. And it's such a shame because she's a very sweet person and she designs really beautiful patterns. She has a lot of historical inspired ones, very highly feminine ones. I think right now she's kind of on an old Hollywood kick. That's kind of the style she's going for right now. And I really want to make her patterns, but I know they don't work for me. So what am I going to make with this yarn? I'm going to make the Derwent sweater, which is an all-over cable sweater. I could not get it out of my head that this hot pink yarn should be knit as cables. I just think it would be so fun to take what is typically a pattern done with neutral yarn like whites or grays or even just undyed yarn and give it a fun twist of making it with a hot pink yarn. And I have plenty of this yarn because I went hog wild when I bought this because it was on super sale when I bought it. But also I think the cables would be so nice in the blown yarn. Of course they won't be as crisp and they won't really stand out as well, but it's going to make the sweater a lot lighter because it's blown yarn instead of a typical thicker Aran weight or heavier Aran weight. So I think that's a fun juxtaposition, and I think it'll create a really fun sweater. This next yarn is one that you will have seen me working on for a different project relatively recently. This is Lion brand Pima Cotton, and this yarn is 100% Pima Cotton. It is, where's my information? Here we go. It is 186 yards per 100 grams, and this color is pewter, which is a grayish green. Now, when I was working on this before, I wanted to make the Ballerina Wrap top by 2 of Wands, and it was a great yarn. It met gauge perfectly, and I was really enjoying it. However, I initially only had 5 skeins of this, and I realized pretty quickly I needed more to meet the length required for that pattern, like to meet my size. And so I ordered some more yarn, and I completely forgot about the fact that I received this yarn 3 years ago, 2021, I think. I received it as a giveaway prize from a contest that was hosted over on Instagram that was co-hosted by Alexi of 2 of Wands and Lion Brand. And 5 skeins was not enough, and when I went to buy some new skeins, I did not even think that they wouldn't match, which was so silly of me. And I had started working on the yoke of this sweater. I think I had already knit up 2 skeins of my original color, and when I went to add in my 3rd skein, I had grabbed one of the new ones, not even looking at it. And after knitting an inch, I realized they don't match at all. So I very quickly realized I had to scrap that project, and then I just kind of let it sit because I thought, what on earth can I make with, I think I had about 900 yards of this yarn, and it's a beautiful color. I really love the color. My swatch is coming undone. But I found a pattern, actually. After I said on my podcast that I didn't know what I was going to make with it, I found the Alberola tank by Haley Hodge, who is known as Graphic Knits. And I love that pattern. It's so beautiful. It is bottom up, but I'm okay with it being bottom up because you're starting with that beautiful lace body, and then you're moving on to the more stockinette based pattern for the rest of the garment. And I think this is going to be so beautiful in that colorway. I can already picture wearing that. I thought I would get it done this summer, and it was on my list to do this summer. And then the pattern was very kindly purchased for me by a follower. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But I just didn't get to it this summer. So hopefully next summer. I know I have a lot of yarn and a lot of projects, and kind of hard to prioritize things, but I will get to it. I really want to make that pattern, and I think this is the perfect yarn for it. Last winter, I got struck with a serious illness. I got struck with cast-on-itis, and this was one of the side effects. I was working on a couple of different projects, including the Ballerina Wrap top, which I just talked about, and I was making decent progress on all of my projects. But then I realized I just need to cast this on immediately. This is Loops and Threads Flex, which is a yarn from Michaels. And I have this one in another sweater pattern. In my very first podcast episode, I talked about making the Radiate sweater by Joji Locatelli using this flex yarn in a blue color. And I love that drape that I got from using the flex yarn. I don't wear that sweater a lot, but I love the colors that I made with it, and I just really enjoyed the drape of this yarn. It's just an acrylic yarn. This color is light pink, and each of these balls is 355 yards per 185 grams, and this is categorized as a worsted weight yarn. And as you can tell, it's got one main color for the skein and then all kinds of little flecks of other colors. This one has flecks of white, pink, and almost like a baby blue, it looks like a really purplish baby blue. And I originally cast this on to make the Spring Breeze sweater by Two of Wands, Lexi. And I did not like it. I forgot how much garter stitch stretches out widthwise, and I really had trouble with the measurements of it because I was measuring it when it was hanging from my body to reach the measurements that it told me to make, because it was a bottom-up sweater, knit flat, and then seam together. However, because it was done in garter stitch, I didn't mind it being knit flat because that meant I knit every row. And when I went to try on, I just like pinned together, or I actually done the 3 needle bind off to connect the 2 shoulders after I finished the front and the back piece. I went to try it on and I did not like the fit at all, and I felt very much like I was wearing a shapeless garment, and that was not the vibe that I wanted. It also wasn't as long as I wanted. I wanted it to be a bit longer, kind of be really hip length or low hip length, and it didn't vibe with it. I totally didn't vibe with it. So I frogged it. I know I want a casual beachy pullover with this yarn, preferably a v-neck. So I'm going to make the Dartmoor v-neck version by Kadri. I knit the Dartmoor sweater last year and I finished it around Christmas time. And it's a really fun, chill jumper. I really loved the construction. It was really fun to make. It's drop shoulder. I haven't done a lot of drop shoulder. And the only thing that I wasn't super happy about with that pattern is that the sleeves don't have any decreases, or they have very limited decreases. So the cuffs are really wide. But I think I would actually like that with this yarn, because then it would feel like a really beachy, summery sweater that you just kind of like toss over a bathing suit, or you wear while sitting next to the fire or something like that, and you don't mind that you have loose cuffs. So I think that's going to be the perfect pattern for this yarn. This next yarn that I want to share is also one that I was working on relatively recently, but I can't remember if I stopped working on it earlier this year, 2024, or if I stopped working on it in late 2023. It was this stunning variegated yarn. This is Woolen Vinyl Classic Rock Sock on the color Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. And I think one of these, I do still have a band in the center of this ball, so I can hopefully tell you more about this yarn. I do still have one. Classic Rock Sock is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards per 100 grams. And I got this yarn. This is a really cute story. Oh my goodness, there it goes. Okay, I have lost one of the balls, but I still have 2 that I can show you. I did want to show all of them together because they're all slightly different, because that's the thing with variegated yarn, but that's okay. I can still tell you about this yarn without having all 3. So this is a really cute story of how this yarn came into my stash. We used to have a local yarn store that started up during the pandemic as online only, and they had planned to open up a brick and mortar store at some time, but they just never got to that stage, and they were only ever online, and they have since closed, which is unfortunate. It's too bad. But I remember in the early days when they started, they offered delivery. And I had a day in 2021, I think it might have been one of the first days that I tried going back to the office after the initial lockdown. And, well, no, that would have been a secondary lockdown, because first lockdown ended in like September of 2020. But I do remember I might have gone to the office that day, and I had just had a really stressful, really anxious day, and I was just kind of struggling. And this was a Friday, and the store that I got this from used to send out an email on Fridays telling you the new stock that they had in that week. And they showed this yarn, which I need to bring closer to you because it is so, so beautiful. There are so many different colors in this. There are hot pinks, there are blues, there are purples, there are white, there are oranges. Just every single beautiful color wrapped into one. And I remember thinking when I saw this yarn that looking at this yarn instantly made me feel better. It made me feel cheerful and happy. And so I bought 3 skeins of it. And I bought that at about like 5:30 on a Friday night. 8:20 p.m., I look out my window and I see someone pull into our driveway and get out with a bag. It was the owners of that store bringing me my yarn. I could not believe it. It was delivered to me within 3 hours. How crazy is that? Obviously, they didn't keep up with the deliveries because of the price of gas and everything. And eventually people did start going back to work, back to offices and everything. But I still remember them delivering this yarn, and it instantly made me feel better. And so I thought to myself, I want to knit this up into my feel-good sweater. And at the time I thought I'll do it as a t-shirt or something like that, because I had bought enough yarn that I could do a t-shirt. And then I forgot about that plan, or I pulled it out one day and I did a swatch. That's what it was. I did a swatch because this was in my stash and it had a bunch of mohair around it for some reason. I had the Groovy Kind of Love electric purple mohair on one side and some really bright teal green mohair on the other side. And I just thought that would look so cool if I used those mohairs with it to kind of buff it up to make something else. So I swatched with the purple and I swatched with the teal, and I couldn't really decide which one I liked more. So then I just put it back in stash and I forgot about it. And a couple of months later, I pulled them back out again, and I wanted to try swatching again. This time I swatched with the mohair striped, and I really loved the look of it. So I decided to cast on a cardigan with this, and I started to make the Leibowitz cardigan by Espace Tricot. And I really enjoyed working on it. But about halfway through, I realized I was going to run out of yarn. I did not have enough yarn to make that pattern. And I wasn't really vibing with the striped mohairs anymore. In fact, I really wanted to just let this variegated yarn shine on its own because it's so spectacular. And that's truer to my initial plan that I wanted to use this yarn for, which was to make a t-shirt that would be my cheer up t-shirt. So I frogged this yarn, and that was quite the endeavor to frog the mohairs, especially because they were striped. But I had a whole system, and I made sure that I took my time with it. I put it in the freezer first so that the mohair would get less sticky, and I just took my time. I went really slowly. I think I only lost like the really initial cast on portion that I did, which wasn't very much yarn. So all in all, hardly anything lost. But I am going to make the Reveries tee with this, which is by my friend Hannah of Herb Garden Knitwear. And at time of recording, this is Hannah's most recent pattern that has been released, and it is a fingering weight t-shirt. It's a circular yoke style, and I just love it. It looks so drapey and beautiful. The reason that I wanted to make this particular pattern is because I saw Emily Knits' version. If you're not watching her podcast, I highly recommend them. She's one of my favorites. And it's always lovely to see more people that are my size doing podcast episodes. So I love watching her podcast for that reason, because she and I make a lot similar stuff. We don't make the same things, but it's kind of great to see what she thinks of certain patterns so that I know, oh, if that works for her, it'll probably work for me, that type of thing. But I decided that I want to make that pattern with this yarn, and I think it's going to be so lovely. It's going to be a bit of an endeavor though, because it's fingering weight yarn, and I think it's size 3 needles, which is 2.75 millimeters, so it's going to be a long project. This crinkly mess of tangled ends was once the Antiquity Blouse by Fable Knitwear, which probably would have worked for me if I made some changes to it. And I could go back and do those again, but I'm not going to do it with this yarn. This is very, very special yarn to me. This is yarn that Doyle bought for me. It is by Mary and May, and that is someone who no longer dyes yarn, but it is her Ophelia sock base, which has stellina in it. Let me see if I can bring it around so you can see. But this is a colorway that was dyed based on a book cover. And the book was Emergency Contact. A couple of years ago, she did an advent calendar that each colorway was a different YA book. And then after the advent calendar finished, she did dyed to order for the more popular colorways, and this was one of them. And I loved the color so much. It's so beautiful, and it's a great color for me. And I thought to myself that I would use this yarn to make a top for my bridal shower, which was last year. And as you can tell, I got pretty far into it. It wasn't until I started the mohair sleeves, which I was going to do short sleeved anyway, that I realized this is not going to work. I've since realized why they weren't going to work and how I would have fixed them, because I have knit the romance cardigan. And I didn't knit the romance cardigan until after I finished this, so I didn't know this beforehand. But these are supposed to be cute little puffed sleeves that were cap sleeves. But as you can tell, you just pick up at the armhole and just start knitting. You don't do any shaping of the sleeve cap. And I now know that to fix this, I would have had to do a short row sleeve cap, which I learned how to do doing the romance cardigan. And I realized this is not worth it to keep going. I'm going to frog this, and I'm going to use this yarn for something else that will be more special to me. So my current plan is to use this yarn to make the Fleuriste cardigan by Sari Nordland. I really think this pink will look so beautiful in that overall lace yoke front to the cardigan. I think it would look so beautiful. But if I find that I start that and it's still not the right pattern for this yarn, because this is a slightly variegated yarn, it does have a lot of visual interest. So looking at the center motif of the Antiquity Blouse, it's beautiful, but I might want something a little more pared down, something that's more stockinette based. So if I start the Fleuriste and I'm not vibing with it, I think I'm going to do the Reina sweater by my friend Hannah of Herb Garden Knitwear, which I think is a circular yoke sweater. It just has a little bit of lace just along the neck, and then the rest of it is knit in stockinette, and then you echo the same lace on the edgings of the sleeve cuffs, which she did 3/4 sleeves. I would probably do long sleeve because I don't really like 3/4 length sleeves. They feel weird to me. Even though I roll up my sleeves all the time for all my button-up shirts, I don't like tops that have 3/4 length sleeves. I'm always pulling them down, trying to get them to go down. But something about a rolled cuff on a shirt feels more like a slightly longer short sleeve shirt. I don't know why my brain works that way. These next two yarns are some deep stash yarns. They have been wound up into balls. I have used this one, and I honestly can't remember if I used this one or if I just wound it up and then forgot about it. I think this one was Mineville Wool Project, which is a yarn company that was based here in Nova Scotia, but they no longer are in operation. And I think this one was Lichen and Lace. So no idea what the colorways are. I'm pretty sure they're DK weight yarn, but other than that, I could not tell you what these are, except that they look really nice together. I love the mustardy golden yellow with this really deep blue with these other colors. I just think they look so nice together. And for these, I'm thinking of making the Garter Snake Cowl, which is a 2-color brioche cowl that I think will look really fun with these very strongly contrasted colors. Just a little something to use up these skeins that have been in my stash for a long time, that I love them too much to just get rid of them whenever I do a yarn purge every once in a while. I just love them, and I feel joyful when I see them, so I thought, yeah, I'll keep them around and I'll make a cowl with them someday. For the most part, the rest of these that I'm going to show you are all going to be small accessory projects, except for one other garment one that's still in this bag. But I still have a lot of leftover bits from various projects that I'm lumping in with my frogged yarns. This is some leftover yarn from my Edith cardigan, which I knit. This is Drops Air, and it's their pearly gray color. I forget the color, but the colorway name. But I really love this pale gray. It's so beautiful. And the blown yarns are just so soft and squishy. They're like a cloud. So I thought I would use the rest of this to knit a hat. I will probably make Jason's cashmere hat. That is my favorite hat pattern. And even though this is fuzzy yarn and it wouldn't really show the cables very much, I don't mind. I think it would still be really lovely. This one started to become a hat, and I only got partway through before I realized I wanted to add something to it. This is leftover yarn from my Eclair raglan. So this is Drops. Oh, I don't remember the name of it. This is Drops Lima, which I think is a 60-40 blend of wool and alpaca, and I can't remember which one is 60 and which one is 40. And I did start working on this. I was working on this around Christmas time 2 years ago, or last year, 2 years ago, I think. And I wanted to just have a little something to work on whenever I'm in social situations. I really like doing something like this. But when I got partway through, I realized I don't think I have quite enough to do a hat unless I try and beef this up with another yarn. And then the following year, after I finished my romance cardigan, which I made for my wedding, I had this ball and some other partial balls of Drops Alpaca Silk, which, even though it's an alpaca blown yarn, it is thicker than your standard mohair or suri. So Drops categorizes this as Aran weight, which I think is ludicrous, but I kind of think of it as like a fingering weight, maybe a DK weight. And I think held together, this will buff up this pattern, and I can reach a better gauge and I can knit a bigger hat. I probably just want to do a basic ribbed hat with this one because it will be extremely fuzzy because of the Drops brushed alpaca. But I'm not keeping Jason's cashmere hat completely out of the running. But whatever hat I do, it's going to be topped with this pom-pom, which I really love. We're just on a hat roll right now because these are also some leftover yarns that will become another hat. I don't know what kind of hat, but these are leftover yarns from my Dartmoor sweater. These are Knitting for Olive mohair, and I think the color was Rust. And these are some leftover Fleece Artist Vine, which is a single ply tweed yarn. You can tell that they are slightly different colors because, again, I had a situation where I needed a little bit of extra yarn and it was not the same dye lot. But I'm going to hold these all together and just get whatever size I can get. If I don't have enough for a hat, I will probably make the School Run headband by Laura Penrose. I knit one of those before, but it's in a variegated color and I don't wear it very often. So I think I would really love one in these colors instead. I would get a lot of wear out of that. So yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to do that instead of a hat because I know for sure I will get the headband out of this. I might not get a hat out of this. These next yarns are yarns that I pulled out of my stash that I thought I want to use those together for a project. This red yarn at the bottom is Estelle Eco Andean DK, and I have tried to make this into a project more than once. The second time that I tried, I used this Knit Picks Alpaca Cloud Lace as well. This is in the colorway Elizabeth, which is a burgundy. I don't remember the color name of this one. And I thought I would use them together to make myself another Augustine's number 21 sweater dress, because I ended up getting rid of my yellow one because it was knit with acrylic yarn and I really didn't like wearing it. But I had trouble with it right from the start, and I was trying to do it on a timeline and I just ended up giving up. And since then, I remembered that I also had this brushed Surrey alpaca in my stash. This is by Bumblebee Acres Fiber Farm, and this is their spun sugar base, which is 74% baby Surrey alpaca, 26% silk, 328 yards per 50 grams. And the colorway is Spell on You, which looks so autumnal, very hocus pocusy. I think it's really fun. It's got all these little flecks in it. And I thought it would work really nicely with these red yarns to buff this up a bit more, because I want to knit a bulky weight vest pattern with these yarns. I think it's just called a simple vest or something like that. I'll put it on screen if I got the title wrong. but I just think these would be really fun. I almost started this last winter, right before Christmas, and it's still on my list of things to make, but I think it'll be maybe like a later winter project when I just want something that's kind of quick and easy to knit, something that doesn't need sleeves or anything like a sweater. So I'm definitely going to make that at some point, maybe this year. I just don't know when. Sorry if things look a little different. I had to stop recording and I have picked this up again on a different day. I'm recording after work, so I am dealing with a less than ideal lighting situation. However, this was the only time that I could film this segment, so needs must. I am dressed different. I think my hair is also different. I can't remember what my hair looked like last time, but I am here to do the mini skeins, and I have some really fun mini skeins. I want to start with this rainbow mini skein set that I got from a handful of yarn. That is Annette, and she has all of these wonderful tags attached to each mini skein to tell me what the color is called, how much is there, what the base is, because this was a bundle. These are all 4-ply yarns. They are either 10 grams or 20 grams. And there's this wonderful rainbow of colors. And I'm trying to hold the tags so they don't flop around and make lots of noise on the mic. But you can see that there's quite a wide variety. One of them has already become untwisted, but there is a green, a yellow, this is like a rusty orange, this is kind of like a very warm plummy purple, we have like a burgundy red, that's also coming apart, and then we have 3 blues, which if I move that one, they kind of go in a fade order of darkest to lightest, and this is a medium tone in between. But this is a mini set that I would love to use as a rainbow project. I'm thinking similar to what I mentioned in the commercial yarns video, I would love to do another Camaro, which is a pattern by Tanis Lavallee of Tanis Fiber Arts. And I would love to do that neck portion in these rainbow minis. However, these are sock weight minis, and especially because some of them are only 10 grams, holding them double would create really thin stripes. So I think I want to find a fingering weight pattern to do with them instead, either a V-neck or maybe a circular yoke that you would really see the change of the colors, and I would have this rainbow striped collar. I think that would be really fun, and I would definitely enjoy pairing these colors with a main color. They're all very autumnal shades, so I think I could definitely pull out another color that would go really nicely with them and get some really beautiful contrast. The next yarns that I have to share are not technically mini skeins, but they do fall under this category because they were my Advent yarns that I got last year. Well, earlier, technically the very end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024. And they are my Teeny Button Studios yarn. So I ordered Robin's Advent calendar last year, and it was a 5-week Advent calendar that you would open on, I think it was the Sunday of each week, or maybe it was the Saturday night of each week, but it led up to New Year's Eve. So these were her New Year's Eve countdown set, and the theme of it was in the stacks. So this is all book themed yarn. So I opened them, I opened them in this order, starting with the first one, which is End Papers. The second one was Book Plate. The third one is Leather Bound. And the last one was Dust Jacket. So let me hold these closer so you can get a better look at them. I think I'm going to hold them up one by one just because they're a little tricky to hold together. So these are technically half skeins. Each one is 50 grams, and you get approximately 230 or 215 yards, I think. And they are just so beautiful. They don't totally fade or blend in. There is quite distinct color variation amongst them. I find that end papers really sticks out because it's so pale, but the other three, oops. I find end papers really sticks out because it's so much lighter, and the other three technically could go really nicely together. I did buy this advent calendar with the intention of using all of the skeins together, because included with them was one full skein to open at the end, and this one, the colorway is in the stacks because it was the whole collection. And there is lots of color variation on this skein. You see there's some blue at the end here, some yellow, some purple, some red. We have browns and mushrooms and beiges over here. And there's so much color variation to it. And I thought these would go better all together, but I just find that for my taste, they clash a little too much. And I honestly didn't know what I was gonna do with these after I opened them all up, and I was really at a loss. I saw that Annabeth is Knitworthy do a set of socks with each of the mini skeins, or half skeins rather, because she has a circular sock machine, and she got at least one pair out of each one of these half skeins, and then I think she striped all of the remnants for a fourth pair of socks. I can't remember if she's used the full skein or not, but I have thought of a project that I want to use all of these yarns for, not including the main one, the full skein. I don't know what I'm doing with that one quite yet, but I know exactly what I'm going to use these for. I'm going to make another emotional support chicken. So after I made the neon pastel one that I made for a friend of mine earlier this year, Doyle expressed interest in having his own emotional support chicken. He loves chickens. It's one of his favorite animals, and he has a couple of plushy Stardew Valley chickens. And I thought to myself, I could definitely make a chicken out of these yarns, because when I asked him what colors he wanted his emotional support chicken in, he said he wanted, and I quote, a chicken colored chicken. Well, I think I can get a chicken colored chicken out of these yarns because they're all really brown beige kind of colors, except for this one's got some green in it, but sometimes there are chickens that have some iridescent feathers. And I really feel like once I put these all together and marl them, I'm going to get a fantastic color, and it's going to be so unique, and I think it's going to look so cool. I think I'm going to use some more natural colors for the neck stripe and the body stripes on the emotional support chicken, that type of thing, which leads me into another yarn that I have sitting in my box, which I'll get to in a second. But I'm very, very excited to do that project. I don't know when I'm going to get it done for him. I was hoping I would get it done for his birthday this year, but my summer knitting just got away with me, and I had a lot of trouble with some of my summer projects. So this will be a later cast on. I would say I would do it for Christmas, but I've got so much going on that I want to knit this fall, and if you've watched my fall knitting plans video, you know what those plans are. And one of those plans is to work on Doyle's cardigan, so I'm just going to work on that instead of these. So I'm not quite sure if it is enough, but I have this brightly colored green that I did wind up, and I can't remember if I did use this for my friend's chicken or not. I don't think I did, but I had it prepped and ready in case I wanted to. But I think this would be a really nice contrasting color for the striping of the emotional support chicken. Oh no, I did use this for hers. I did the comb of the rooster, of the chicken rather, in this color. So I still have quite a bit left of it. I'll have to double check the pattern to see if this is enough. But I would definitely use that for the striping. And I have this beautiful bright yellow yarn that I will use for the beak. This yarn was gifted to me by one of my viewers, and I'm going to show the rest of that mini set that she gave me next. But these were all gifted to me I think she gave them to me for a wedding gift, and it was so sweet of her to do it. And I love this bright yellow color, and it was the perfect color to do the beak of my friend's emotional support chicken, and I will use that for Doyle's as well. And I can see myself making more of those patterns, so I think I'm going to just keep this one in my stash to keep doing beaks for chickens. As for the whole skein, not a clue. So this will just live in the stash. It's pretty. I just don't know what I'm doing with it yet. So you've heard me mention in this video, and you've heard me mention it in one other video that I've done, that I had some yarn gifted to me by a viewer. And that yarn included some of their hand-dyed yarn, as well as a skein of alpaca silk that I talked about in an early video that I said was sent with a coordinating mini skein. And this one is by the same company as that alpaca silk skein. This is Das Mondschaft, and this is their Pegasus Minis, 75% merino wool, 25% nylon, and there is 84 meters per 20 grams. And the color of this one is Fire and Blood, which sounds gruesome, but the color is this gorgeous plum. And I'm hoping to use this in some way with the alpaca silk because I really love the color combination of that multi-tonal teal with this plummy color. So I'm thinking whatever pattern I end up doing, I was going to do some sort of a shawl or a scarf. I'll find a way of incorporating this either as striping or as edging because I think it would just look so beautiful. But as for the others, these are her hand-dyed mini skeins. I remember she just sent me a picture of all of her mini skeins and said, pick some, and then she would send them to me. It was so incredibly kind. I am so thankful for that. It was so sweet of her. And she ended up tossing in this extra one because it went with the colors that I chose, because I chose these 4 blues and I chose the bright yellow that I just showed you that I've been using for the chickens. And I loved these blues because I felt that they created this really beautiful gradient. If I swap them around a bit, I think this was the gradient that I had imagined. And I love that this one plays with all of those colors as well. So I do intend to use these for something, but I don't quite know yet. I think I just want to wait and see what sparks my interest because they're so beautiful. I really want to make sure I do them justice. And I love that she gave this coordinating multicolored one because I think this would look really good with these other ones. And she was also incredibly kind to give me all of the information that I needed about them on these papers. So these mini skeins are all approximately 20 grams / 84 meters. They are 75% wool, 25% nylon. She's even given me gauge, which is amazing, and washing instructions. She said that they can technically go through a machine that is no higher than 30 degrees, but hand wash is probably better for the colors. And I haven't even mentioned the fun thing about the colors. They are all dyed using natural dye ingredients. So the yellow one, I'm pretty sure was dyed using marigolds. And the blues, I'm pretty sure are all shades of indigo. Oh no, I'm lying. All dyed with Schwarz Stockhouse / Black Hollyhocks. So if either of those words make sense to you, that's what they have been dyed with. And the multicolor one has been dyed with marigolds, black hollyhock, hibiscus, cochineal, madder, and elderberry. And I do need to show these close up because they are incredible. I'll show the blues first and then I'll show the multicolor one. I'm trying to avoid crinkling in the mic. Oh, one of these is dyed differently. This darker one is dyed with logwood / Blauholz, which is probably another word for logwood. I am not entirely sure, and I do apologize about that, but I only very briefly dipped my toe into natural dyeing and quickly realized it was not for me. But aren't they gorgeous? I just think the colors are so beautiful. And it's so impressive what you can get from purely natural dyes. And then I'll hold up the multicolored one because it's so incredible how she managed to get so many colors in one little mini skein. So I have no idea what these will become, but they will be a very beloved project when I do eventually work with them, because they were this lovely gift from a viewer, and I am so grateful for that. It was so lovely of her. This next mini skein yarn that I'm going to show you is going to make some crinkle noises, and I do apologize, but I'm not taking this out of the plastic quite yet. This is my mini skein set from the Golden Hour Advent, done by the Fiber Fox. And I learned some lessons with this one. Here is, I really hope you can see it through the plastic and that it's not giving glare. I'll try my best to move it around in case I am getting glare. And I'm really sorry about the crinkling. I know a lot of people really don't like that noise. But these are from the Fiber Fox's 2023 Advent Calendar. And the Fiber Fox is based in the UK. They're in England. And I first heard about this Advent Calendar from Laura Penrose of Penrose Knits. Laura got this Advent Calendar this year and she knit herself a shawl. And I promptly fell in love with the colors. And I did not buy that Advent Calendar because I didn't know about it until Laura shared it. I think the dyer's name is Georgie. She and her husband had a pre-order for any of the colors from the Advent in January. However, I was not able to purchase at that time, so I could not order from the pre-order. And it was quite expensive to get the full set. And I was just kind of not feeling comfortable with making that type of a purchase so quickly after Christmas, when, you know, you're trying to catch up from the things that you've spent money on in the Christmas season. So I just couldn't purchase at that time, and I thought I'll just leave it alone. That was my opportunity and it passed. I'm gonna just get over it, because I'm trying to teach myself that just because I see something that I like, it doesn't mean I need to have it. Just because there is a pre-order, I do not need to order from it. I really struggle with pre-orders because they create a sense of forced scarcity, because you feel like if you don't get it now, you will never get it again. And in some cases, yes, that's the truth. The dyer will never do that same color again. But it's not the end of the world if I don't get that color. I can always fall in love with another color next time I see yarn on Instagram. And let's be honest, there are a lot of beautiful dyers out there. I'm bound to find something else that I love. And I'm not going to feel like I have lost my one chance to have that yarn that I really wanted. But this was a case where the yarn had a chokehold on me, and I could not stop thinking about it. So when Georgie finished her pre-order and she put up for sale all of the extras, who went crawling to get a mini skein set? That would be this girl. And I don't want to say I regret the purchase, but I felt very chastened by the purchase, because not only was it a lot of money just for the yarn itself, I got hit with duty. And other than this one dyer, I have never been hit with duty from a UK dyer. And I was pissed. I don't know if Border Services was just having a bad day that day. I don't know if it's something that was done on the end of the dyer, of how the customs form was written up, but I got hit with duty, and I got hit bad. So my already expensive purchase just became a lot more expensive, and then it arrived, and I kind of fell out of love with it simply because it had cost so much. And I really struggled to feel like it was worth it. Not because the yarn wasn't beautiful. You can tell this yarn is beautiful. But I just felt like I had let my own shopaholic type tendencies spurred out of me when I bought this, and I didn't think about what I was really paying for, what I was really getting, and it really has made me claw back on my purchases and really think long and hard before I buy something. And it's an expensive lesson to learn, and I really think I needed to learn it. And this yarn has continued to sit in my stash because I need to get over that in order to fall back in love with it. The colors are absolutely stunning, but I feel like the circumstances really hindered my ability to love this yarn, and I really feel like I need to give it time to sit in the stash, almost let it age and ruminate and let the flavors or colors really soak in, and eventually I will come back to this and I will feel the joy that I felt when I saw Laura's shawl and the desire to have that color in my life. So I really love it because the colorway set is called Golden Hour. I'm not sure if I mentioned that yet. But Golden Hour is my favorite time of day. It is also one of my favorite songs that I've ever heard. There is a cover version of it by an artist called Chilled Pig on Spotify. And it's the most beautiful piece of music I've ever heard in my life. I've heard a lot of beautiful pieces of music, but that one's my favorite one that I've ever heard. And it just fills me with so many feelings every time I hear it. And when I look at these yarns, I hear that song and I picture golden hour of the day, which is the hour of sunset. And I see all these beautiful colors and it makes me think of my favorite time of day, which is late afternoon, just before sunset. And I really need to love this yarn again in order to find the perfect project for it, because right now I am adrift. I know I want it to be a garment. I know I want it to fade. I'm just going to go from skein to skein. I'm not going to try and stripe them or anything because you can tell they are seamless from start to finish. My favorite section are these purples down at the end. I really, really love them. And those are the ones that I want to focus on in whatever project I do and highlight these. So if I do a sweater or a top of some sort, these will be the ones that will be right at the forefront, probably right at my neck, and I'll end with these beiges. Because also, if I'm doing a top-down sweater, I'm going to need a bit more for the arms than I would need for the body. There's quite a few beiges. It would be a little easier to fudge which one I'm using where if I need to split them between sleeves and whatnot. Versus these, I really would rather have them flow nicely on a single piece of fabric and then at the end have sleeve cuffs that are all beige, that are all this beige section at the end. But yeah, lesson learned, and I need to fall back in love with this yarn. Now before I show you my last chunk of fingering weight yarns, I just want to show you, this is the current state of my mini skein box. This is actually the box that my Woolshed advent calendar came in, and any mini skeins that I still have left over in my stash that I don't really know what to do with are all in this box, and you can tell they're quite messy. Some of them are all tangled, or they're all like little bits that are left, and I just keep them here because some inspiration may strike, don't know what, but I have them just in case. And sometimes I might need a little bit of a certain color for something. Maybe I need like an accent color of blue or of limey green, and I just have them here in case I need them. Now we have come to my final yarn in my collection, and this is an interesting one to end with because in a way it was also the start of me getting into hand-dyed yarn, which I alluded to in my hand-dyed yarn Moody Jewels section, because these are my Goosey Fibers Harry Potter Spells Advent. Now, like I've said in other videos, I do want to preface this by saying I do not support Harry Potter anymore. I vehemently disagree with J.K. Rowling's opinions. I do, however, still have these yarns in my stash, and I don't want them to go to waste. That being said, This was my introduction to purchasing hand-dyed yarn online. And I think I bought these in either 2017 or 2018, but they were the very first advent calendar that I ever purchased, and I had zero chill, and as soon as the advent calendar arrived in November, I opened up every single box right away, and I fanned them all out on my table, and I just loved them. They were so cool. I thought the colors were incredible. It was such an interesting collection of colors, and I'm blanking on the best way to show these to you because I have them all in this little bag because I have a very special project that I want to make with these. I'm certainly not going to make it yet, but when I do make it, I'm going to be making the Heirloom quilt cardigan. I have been lusting after this pattern for years. I think it's one of the most incredible patterns that I've seen for creativity and originality, but it is going to be an endeavor. I don't know yet what color I'm going to do for the sleeves or the front ribbing, but these mini skeins are going to make up the quilt squares. And the last time I was going through my yarn stash, I had paired some of them off for what I thought were really good color combos, but I think I won't know for sure which ones I want to use together, how I want to combine the colors until I'm ready to actually sit down and knit this cardigan, and I'll do all of my project planning then. But I'm going to take these out one by one, I think. That's how I'm going to show these off and really give you an idea. Oh, this was smart of me. I tied together the colors that I thought would go together. I'm just realizing that now. So let me see if I can do this. I've probably put these together in what I feel are the most contrasting pairs. So here's one. I'm just going to chuck them in my box next to me as I go. This one is a drift, so I don't know what this one's supposed to go with. Maybe, oh, it came off of this one. Okay, these are supposed to go together. Here's another set. These ones, I was really pulling out the little bit of hot pink on the green one to match with this red. Thought that was a really fun combo. Here's another set. That's very hard to show. I'm really proud of past Whitney for putting these all together like this. I think some of them I was really sure about the color combos, and then others I really played around with to get what I felt was the best contrasting pair. Because a lot of the yarns in this advent were similar in tone. There's a lot of blues and teals in this advent. And when I first got the advent, I thought I was going to do two projects. I thought I was going to do one with all of the warm tones and one with all of the cool tones. But that was a couple of years ago. And I thought I was also going to hold mohair with it. There's no mohair that would match all of the cool colors that come in this yarn. And then the Heirloom quilt cardigan pattern came out and sold, done deal. That's what I want. And it really helps give purpose for me to this yarn that for a long time sat in my stash because I did feel really uncomfortable with the fact that it was a Harry Potter yarn, and I felt embarrassed about it and felt uncomfortable talking about it or sharing it because I have trans friends and I support the trans community, and I in no way wanted to cause harm to anybody, and I didn't want people to feel that they couldn't come to my channel because I was discussing something that gave them a lot of grief and a lot of, upset. So I feel like this is going to be a really big endeavor of a project, and it's going to help give me some purpose for what to use these yarns for, I feel like it's also going to be a real testament to hand-dyed yarn and a real showcase of hand-dyed yarn and how it can be made into something so beautiful and so unique because I'm using all of these different mini skeins, and I really feel like mini skeins are the perfect project or are the perfect yarn to use for a project like this. So that's an interesting yarn to end with for my episode 5 of my stash tour, but also to end the stash tour in general, because that really is a bit of a catalyst yarn for me, because that was one of the first yarns that I ever bought online that was a hand-dyed yarn from an indie dyer. Before then, I'd only ever bought yarn from Michael's, the big box craft stores. And this one kind of opened the doors for me and opened my eyes to all the amazing yarns that are out there, and it was the gateway to all of what you have seen so far. So now I just wanted to wrap up my whole stash tour series with a few sort of notes at the end of this. First and foremost, the size of your yarn stash is incredibly personal. I know I mentioned that at the first opening of my first episode of this series, but I do just want to reiterate it here at the end because now you've seen my yarn stash, and I do not in any way want you to compare and despair. A lot of people might think that my yarn stash is really, really big and overwhelming, and they'll never have a stash that big. There could be other people out there that look at my stash and think, that's not that bad, I have a bigger stash. And that's completely okay. Everybody's stash is their own. And that reminds me of a book that I really wanted to talk about here at the end. It's a book that I read a couple of years ago, and I did share it in one of my podcast episodes quite a few years ago. It is called A Stash of One's Own by Clara Parks, and it is a collection of essays from different crafters, all talking about their stash or their lack thereof, and sharing their thoughts and feelings about their stashes. And it really opened my eyes to what your stash can be. Your stash is a living thing. It's kind of like a library catalog. It's always changing, it's always adapting, it's always has things coming in and going out, and it's okay whatever size it is, and you're going to find something exciting in there, you're going to find purpose in there, you're going to find education in there, you're going to find so much in your stash, and but depending on whether it's a big stash or a little stash, you're always going to find what you're looking for in that stash, even if you're finding a gap in your stash that you want to fill. And it's really important to me that there is zero judgment when it comes to stash size, whether that's big or small. And I really feel that it's important to look at your stash as creative inspiration. Not everything in my stash has a purpose, has a use, has a pattern in mind, has a project that I want to make with it. As you've seen throughout these videos, there are quite a few yarns in my stash that I don't know what to do with. I have others that I have very set projects in mind for. But the purpose of my stash is that anytime I am seeking creative inspiration, I can go to it and I can look through it and I can find something in it. And I'm not always inspired in a very direct way. Like, I don't necessarily see a yarn and think, oh, that's great for pattern A. Sometimes I look at my stash and I think, that's making me think of this thing. That's making me think of that thing. That's making me think of this sweater. And oh, I should do this with that. And it's a really fun, creative brainstorming activity to just sit with my stash and look through it. My husband actually calls it my stash meditation, because I go up to our loft, which is where I keep my yarn stash, and I just open the drawers and I just look at the yarns and I start to feel things, I start to think things, the wheels in my brain start turning, and it makes me feel so creative. And that's the whole purpose of having a yarn stash, is to make me feel creative, is to make me want to create. And I feel that I have taken the time over the years to really curate my yarn stash into a collection of yarns that I do feel inspired by and that I do want to use or I want to look at in order to get inspiration. And my stash makes me really happy. And you should feel the same way about yours, no matter what it looks like. So I just kind of wanted to end on some of those thoughts. I thought they were really important to share with you and to talk about here at the end, because it's been a bit of a journey showing you all of these yarns and going through them all and sharing some of the stories of how they came into my stash. And it just reminds me how much I put into this craft, this hobby, and how important it is to me. Not only have I invested money in it, I've also invested love in it, and I've invested my creativity, and I have invested storage space because it takes up a lot of space. But I feel like knitting is one of those things that it gives me back just as much as I put into it, and I love that so much about it. Thank you all so much for sticking it out for these videos. I'm not going to kid myself. I'm pretty sure that as each video has come out, the viewership has probably gone down. I am pre-recording all of these videos and I'm going to release them in a weekly fashion. So I could be entirely wrong because I don't know. I'm recording this before any of the videos are even out yet. So maybe I'm going to prove myself wrong, but I'm expecting that each week the viewership will go down little by little. But whether you have been here for all 5 of the videos, 4 of them, 3 of them, 2 of them, maybe this is the only one of them that you've watched, I appreciate you being here and watching my videos. Again, these videos were a celebration video series to celebrate reaching 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which I am so grateful for. At time of recording, I have actually surpassed 5,000. I think I'm up to 5,300 now, which is just incredible. And I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Whether you're new to my channel or not, you are so welcome here. I am so glad that you chose to spend time with me and to join in my little community that I've built here and just enjoy my happy little corner of the internet. If you're new here, thank you so much for watching. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. While you're here, it would help my channel if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please leave me a comment below. Let me know which of these yarns was your favorite, or better yet, tell me something that you have enjoyed about your own stash. Give me your own thoughts about keeping a stash. Do you have a large one? Do you have a small one? Tell me something you love about your stash. Another little reminder that if you ever want to give me a tip, I have my Ravelry wish list linked below where you could buy me a pattern if you would like to give me a tip. There is no pressure, it's only there if you would like to. Thank you all so much for watching and happy knitting!